and its version of NSA, which is known as the SCIS, carried out this hacking. Why? Why not? It's an active measure. It degrades the United States, and it's there. People always ask me every day, well, how do you know? What makes you so sure? Right? This is my favorite one. There's no evidence that there was any hacking. Don't believe a word I say. Right? Why would you believe some old spy? Don't believe the United States government. Why do all those tens of thousands of people come up and lie to you every day? This is what people tell me. Why would you believe? And the funny part is, why would you not believe the people that protect you every day about this, right? What, they want to keep you alive from terrorists so they can lie to you about a hacking?
How that whole fucking thing began. It's a Brennan operation. It was an American disinformation. The NSA was going and telling the press, this fucking cocksucker Rogers was telling the press that we even know who in the GRU, the Russian military intelligence service, leaked it. I mean, all bullshit.
There was a company called CrowdStrike that was brought into the Democratic National Committee at the time of the hacking. This was in March 2016. Their analysts realized that there was something going on in the servers of the DNC. So they brought in a counter-hacking team. This team did not just start plugging holes. They followed and monitored the hack while it was going on in real time. I've met Dmitry Operovich, the CEO of CrowdStrike, and he said we were sitting there on computers, everybody watching the files get transferred one at a time, and then watching them erase their footprints. Not only did they conduct the DNC hack and were monitored real time by cyber professionals that were subcontractors, not even NSA. Of course, NSA was monitoring them. But you can go read right now, Google CrowdStrike DNC hack, and you can read the official report that was released to the DNC in June of 2016 that had nothing to do with the United States government. So there is ample evidence. Now that's just what the civilians came up with. All right? For anybody who knows the awesome power of Fort Meade at NSA, where I worked for a time, they know everything. They're just not going to tell you.
We have been attacked. We are at war.
When you attack a country, it's an act of war.
In some quarters, that would be considered an act of war.
Russia, no doubt, was trying to affect, influence the outcome.
There's no question now that Russians were trying to affect our election.
We know that Russia meddled in the election. No one is disputing that.
And everybody knows that Russia meddled in our election.
These facts are not disputed by any serious person, so
there's no doubt that Russians and others have hacked.
There's no question what the Russians were trying to do.
There is no question, underline no question, that the Russian government interfered in the U.S. election last year, and Moscow continues to meddle in the democratic processes of our friends and allies.
We have been attacked by Russia. That is no longer subject to any debate.
Hey, what about me? Not on the list. You have to let me vote. This is a swing state. My vote's worth more than 1 million Californians.
Don't worry. My hackers will get you in. Doesn't matter. Trump is winning 102%. Business is business.
Very little to do with our historic victory. I do agree with Trump there. That victory was the selfless, uncredited work of one eager young staffer. Trump!
I hear you want to bring in a character witness.
That's right. Someone who's known me for years, his family. He's an incredible person with impeccable credentials, Mr. Vladimir Putin.
This is Russian President Vladimir Putin. He's an authoritarian leader who has invaded other countries and killed rivals. He's President Trump's longtime crush.
You've never worked for Russian intelligence, right?
Нет, Steven. I've worked many jobs, never Russian intelligence.
Oh, where'd you work for here?
The Trump campaign.
Now, watch carefully as I show you the complex link between our president and Russia.
This election isn't some conspiracy theory. All of the U.S. intelligence agencies say that it happened.
And that President Trump still refuses to accept the fact that Russia meddled in the 2016.
That Russia hacked this election. And he's basically just dismissed it. You had to force him to even say that it was a bad thing.
The only prominent America about whom I am aware that has not yet conceded that the Russians conducted a massive covert influence campaign against the United States. I think that is accepted throughout the intelligence community. That is not contentious.
You have to believe that these were all isolated incidents, not connected to each other. Just doesn't make rational sense. Now, can you prove beyond a reasonable doubt will be Mueller's question to answer. The discrediting of our institutions, the justice system, the judiciary, the press, is enormously destructive.
He doesn't take the word of the intelligence community, and that's what he's been doing repeatedly in terms of his public comments. 2 days before the G20 summit in Warsaw, he continued to question the intelligence community's high-confidence assessment that Russia interfered in the election.
President-elect dismissing and mocking the assessment of the intelligence services that he's about to be in charge of.
By reason of the matters detailed in this trial, have rendered yourself in the judgment of this holy office vehemently suspected of heresy. Namely, having held and believed a doctrine which is false and contrary to Scripture.
Of course, these stories in the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, and elsewhere are not conspiracy theories. These are news stories sourced by government officials. He sided with Putin and he started attacking the U.S. intelligence agencies, you two in particular. The director of national intelligence, the head of the National Security Agency, the head of the FBI. I mean, all of these intelligence experts saying Russia hacked the election. They tried to interfere in the election. No votes were changed, but there was this disinformation and misinformation campaign. President Trump is contradicting it, and you're siding with President Trump. And then Senator Ron Wyden, who's demanding a full accounting of what went on, he says outright that Brennan made claims that were simply not true.
It's the allegations of, CIA hacking into, Senate computers. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, we wouldn't do that. I mean, that's...
Brennan, the director of the CIA, said in March, when asked about that by searching in these computers and doing what the CIA admits it did, protests by the CIA that they had not been snooping on what the Senate Intelligence Committee staffers were doing. They were, in fact.
You're absolutely certain, so why do you need more information? I guess I'm confused. If you're so certain.
I'm confident in the reporting, but I want to know how they came to that conclusion. Let's confirm the information. Let's understand how they developed that.
But on the core question of collusion, there may not be enough evidence to show any crime.
So I would not be surprised if Bob Mueller concludes that the Trump campaign did not violate the law with regard to its interactions with the Russians.
And I say this because I don't think we're going to find any intelligence products that unlock that key to pre-June of 16.
It was very precisely and carefully worded that the indictment itself reflected no collusion.
You seen any evidence of collusion with members of the Trump campaign at the time?
I wasn't on the campaign. I haven't seen it.
Very clear that the Russians interfered in the election, and it's still puzzling as to why Mr. Trump does not acknowledge that and embrace it, and also push back hard against.
He has much harsher words for the cast of the play Hamilton than he has had for Vladimir Putin.
Putin made a point of lavishly praising his American counterpart's accomplishments. And then, in words strikingly similar to Mr. Trump's, he again denied interfering in last year's U.S. election, and he scoffed at charges that the Trump campaign colluded with Russians.
And when we fight with each other, when we question our fundamental institutions, that is a great day for Vladimir Putin.
saying in Europe, we don't know, simply not true, but also a great gift to Vladimir Putin in the run-up to that meeting.
First reaction was to defend Russia rather than support his own fact-based intelligence agency, the CIA.
Well, I think that Vladimir Putin and President Trump are among the few that I've encountered who really doubt it.
You, the party of Ronald Reagan, tear down the wall, the big enemy Russia, now they're your friend.
No, that's
party over country.
This explains why he seems more conciliatory toward Russia, toward Putin, than he does even towards U.S. allies.
Through that. First of all, I shouldn't have wasted time telling you guys about the Russian perspective. You have it here. I mean, it's a very clear, concise summary of what you'll hear in official Russian circles. It's this, these are the arguments that Russians will put forward.
I repeat again, the senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin.
This is classic Putin, right? This is whataboutism. This is straight out of the Kremlin, as you were kind of saying, deflect. But it's a very specific kind of deflection. You take what is being accused of you and you turn it around. So you say, yes, we might have colluded with a foreign government to overthrow this election, but what about Hillary Clinton? Overnight, literally overnight, within 48 hours, this witch hunt to drag someone from Chappaqua, private citizen, and literally a witch hunt.
We've been seeing both from the Trump administration and from some of Trump's supporters in the media, namely their aggressive attempts to shift the narrative. What I suspect that those RNC talking points suggest that you do is that when you get on a show like this and we want to talk about Russiagate, about these indictments, that you should bring up Fusion GPS and you should bring up Uranium One. Is that something you were told to do?
No.
Yep. The face of authoritarianism, and it's the face of fascism in America.
Adam, there's no more concerns about hacking or colluding. There's nothing to see here.
It's gone from Russia to
they come up with some type of Russia
bingo. Great point.
limerick that we all have to digest.
Yeah, terrific point.
Those talking heads should ask real reporters how this works. Is it the pro-Trump media wants the Russia investigations to be over? So maybe they're just pretending like the investigations are over. They're not curious. They don't want questions answered about what really happened last year and what might happen in the future.
Only discomfort I have is with folks in the media trying to create a veniality without having the courage to specifically tell me what the veniality that I should be concerned about is. Well, I have not identified a veniality. Have you?
Well, you should be concerned if there was collusion. And that's what
I don't see any evidence of collusion. Do you?
No. Unfortunately, there's very little skepticism being applied to the agencies that have repeatedly misled and deceived and lied to the American public. I think that's the dilemma, is that as journalists and citizens, we need to see evidence before believing claims from institutions that have proven over and over that they're willing to lie and mislead.
You are just a defender for Putin, aren't you? You just don't want to accept he's done anything. Because you say, I don't know, but anything he's done.
I'm questioning your certainty. You know, and there was a lot of certainty about WMD getting us into a war. As you know very well, you were fired from the Mirror over that war.
If this hacking actually took place, there would be an electronic trail back to the point of origin. We haven't seen any electronic trail. We haven't heard anything coming from the director of NSA saying that there had been a successful hack. And so it just leads me to believe that the evidence doesn't exist.
You know, the point is they're supposed to prove the assertions that they're making, and they're not doing that. That means, to me, they don't have the evidence, which means to me, again, if this network that NSA has couldn't find the routing of these packets around the network anywhere, then it had to be an insider to do the job.
Here, in pursuit of an issue where there's been very little core, fundamental, foundational evidence presented.
Well,
and that's why I think, and when Scott says that the DNI and the CIA should have put out more information at the end of the Obama administration, yes, but they put out almost nothing. I read those two reports, and you should go through them. They are laughable in terms of any kind of evidence.
And you all laughed, as though I represent the Russian point of view. This is part of the problem with the dialogue in this country. 85% of what Andrew and Julius say, I don't believe to be factually correct. because an American who has some credentials, and I'm far from alone, and there are people in the agency who think exactly the way I do, exactly the way I do. There's no collective CIA. When I tell you that the Russian analysis of the Syrian situation is correct, and decapitating states endangers us, I agree, not because Putin says it. I don't care what Putin says, but I'm glad he does because they think he's right. I'm speaking to Americans. So it's not a good thing to say, oh, that's the Russian or Soviet point of view.
Trump's not wrong to think they all fucking lied about him.
Another aspect of Mr. Putin's conduct is the fact that he took his capabilities in the cyber area and used it to try to influence our election. There was a very serious effort made by Mr. Putin, and
according to our intelligence services, the Russian government has made a project of turning Americans against each other. This effort is broad, systemic, and stealthy. It's conducted across a range of social media platforms.
I hearken back to Bill Casey, who was director when I was still on active duty there, so at the CIA. First thing he said at the first staff meeting at the White House, he said, you know, when we succeed in getting the entire American people to believe what we tell them to believe, we will have succeeded in our objective. If I gave you time to change my mind,